No, tonight we came in here and we were just going to pay like $70. $70 is not much money for a concert. We like paying $70 and we're just not going to do much. You'll be fucking fine. We'll have a couple of drinks. We won't have too many drinks because then we get disorderly and we say things we regret later. I'll tell you what we won't fucking do. Head back to that riff that sounds like Slayer! Come on, you motherfuckers! Loosen up! Leave together!
Coming up on The Realm, we catch up with co-founder of New York hardcore legends, the Cro-Mags, with guest Parris Mayhew. Plus we check in with James and Andy from the Black Crown Initiate. So don't go anywhere. Well, welcome to another episode of The Realm here. You're with the Riff Crew, my host, Stephen Mitchell, and of course myself, Andrew Hogue. And what has been happening in your world, Stephen?
Well, I'm just trying to avoid the fuzz this week because the police are out in force. So I'm not talking about the fuzz in reference to the poster behind you. So, no, it was all smooth getting here to the palatious andrewhogue.com studios. And very excited because we've got a couple of great guests today.
Yeah, we certainly do have, of course, none other than Mr. Parris Mayhew, founding member of the Cro-Mags, and a massive list of so many other things. I guess we'll just introduce him to the program. Welcome to The Realm, Parris.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you on. And like I said, you've just got such a massive list of, achievements and so much influence as well. But I know over the last few years, you don't play music a lot. Do you miss it? Considering the amount of things that you have achieved over the years?
I just have to kind of compartmentalize my passions, and for a long time I've been working in the film business, but I mean I definitely play music. I have a guitar in every room, and I'm constantly writing, and I have been attempting to put together a band over the past couple of years, but I've abandoned that idea. Just from struggling with trying to have different kinds of relationships with people musically. But I'm going to release some music soon, and my lovely wife just handed me a beer. So I am going to release music soon, but I'm not going to do it in a traditional way, like putting out a record. I'm just going to try to figure out some kind of a newer DIY, self-release, self-promoted, and one song at a time type situation.
Do you have any or can you elaborate, I guess, on how it will sound and what we can expect from, what you've got coming up?
That's a good question. The ones I'm basically going to release the first song, not so much based on anything but availability. I have attempted to demo many songs over the years to varying success. And I do have a lot of new material that I've wanted to record, but I haven't. But I do have I actually have 3 tracks that are pretty strong recordings that I'm just going to release first just because they're the best sounding recordings. And again, they're not going to be released in a traditional way, just as audio. I'm just going to do music videos on a YouTube channel. And that's going to be the source. Like if you want to listen to my music, you have to go to my YouTube channel to watch the video. And then somewhere down the line, when I get the music in a position where I can perform it live and I go out on tour, I'll provide stuff that people could have in their hands, like vinyl and CDs and things like that. But it's really not a commercial venture. I just want to kind of reestablish myself as a musician in this new kind of way, and try to get as many views on YouTube as I can, and make that be the source of my music.
Now, you mentioned you've got 3 songs. Can you sort of tell us a bit about how it's sounding? And have you written everything, or you've collaborated with other musicians to put that together?
The first song that I'm releasing, I wrote all myself. It was just one of the songs that came together as I always think of them as puzzles. This puzzle I just completed by myself. And the other two songs, I also wrote those two all myself. But I do have a couple of tracks that I co-wrote with other people, but those aren't ready to be released yet. But I'll release those two at some point. I just the three tracks that I have ready to go, they're all pretty different. Like the first one, I guess someone might say that it's something they might expect from me. You know, being a member of the Cro-Mags, somebody could probably hear it and say to themselves, it sounds like kind of a mutated version of the Cro-Mags, because, you know, that's just what I sound like. But it's also many years later, and it brings with it all that I've learned in the past, in all these years, and all the new things that I would want to add to my music and the way I would want my music to sound. I mean, when I listen to Cro-Mags now, I mean, as much as I like lots of parts of it, it sounds very primitive to me. And then the other two songs, one of them is kind of a really slow song, which is very uncharacteristic to me. I was trying to write something completely different. Not that I haven't written slow songs. Malfunction on the first Cro-Mags album is a slow rock song, but it's still chords, power chords, heavy type thing. This is more like, you know, writing riffs with melody, not like melody like poppy, but like, you know, something like Alice in Chains would write. Jerry Cantrell always had this ability to make single note riffs sound really robust and clear and melodic, and like they had a character of their own. Just trying to do that kind of thing.
You mentioned that you basically had issues trying to get a band or a lineup together to write this new material. So you've basically gone DIY. Are you going to be singing on it, or do you have someone in mind that you're going to collaborate with?
I'm actually going to put out the music instrumental. It's funny because I never had considered doing that before, but I found myself, you know, when you end up playing music endlessly for a long time by yourself, you find yourself trying to make it as dense and as interesting as possible, even without vocals. And he's eating. And so as I listened to it more and more, it wasn't like one of those songs like if you hear like, I don't know, You Got Another Thing Coming, or Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. The song just doesn't make sense without vocals. But these songs make sense without vocals. And like I said, I'm just trying to reestablish myself musically. And so to a certain extent, I don't know how much of an extent, the music will be an invitation to other musicians to be involved. Because, you know, as far as looking for musicians, I can say, or people can say, oh, the guy from the Cro-Mags is looking to start a band, and who's going to show up? 500 guys who think they're John Joseph, and 50 guys who, you know, can't play nearly as good as Doug, but they think they do. So I would like my music to have a different context in terms of attracting musicians.
And with the idea of the instrumental music and coupling that with, I guess, your other passion in music video, do you have ideas in mind already in terms of the direction you want to take with those videos, given there are no lyrics?
Yeah. I mean, I've already started shooting one of the videos, and, you know, in New York City is pretty much shut down, as I'm sure most of the world is. And I never leave my house except at night. Me and a friend, I have a friend, this house, I have an apartment downstairs, and I have a friend who, when the pandemic first hit, started isolating here. And so he basically lives downstairs, and he's an electrician in the film business. So he and I have been going out at night. We usually go out at about midnight and to shoot this music video. We've gone out about 15 times, and we've shot quite a lot of footage. And I'm almost done with the first edit. I would say I'm going to do another week of shooting. And when I say a week of shooting, it's not like a traditional shoot schedule where you show up in the morning and shoot for 15 hours and then go home. Me and him will go out and we'll shoot for 3 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours, and just get what we can get, and then come back, because it's, like I said, it's in the middle of the night, so we just get really tired, and sometimes the sun rises on us. But I'm pretty close to having the first video ready to go. And I would say about a month away. I want to be conservative about it because there's really no rush.
I know you mentioned earlier on that you've always been writing music, even though obviously in different careers these days. But when did the passion to start to work on this project start to kick in for you and, create the YouTube channel that's coming up? And, has that been sort of a combination over the last couple of years or longer than that, maybe?
Well, the YouTube idea came up literally in the past couple of days. Me and my wife were talking about it. We have a company together. We a content creation company, and we just feel like we're learning every day about how things have changed. And to a large extent, I don't even know what the music business has to offer musicians anymore. They certainly don't. I don't think it has anything to offer me, because I am an established name to a certain extent. I can probably. I know, because I get offers via email all the time from festivals all over the world. If you ever get anything together, you can play it. So I don't need that foothold, that opening of the door, that, to get it all started. So I don't really know what a traditional record label situation could offer me. But just looking at the way things work now in the digital age, and I watch a lot of YouTube, and I see channels, that have these, I watch a lot of archaeologists who have pages, musicians who have pages, and you go there, you subscribe to the page, and they get a certain amount of likes, and the page generates interest and income. And I just thought that might be a good way to get a foothold. That's the answer to that part of the question. The other part of the question, oddly enough, is when I left the band, and started my trip back into the film business, I'd say 20 years ago, I literally put all my guitars and amps in storage, and just dedicated myself 100% to getting back into the film business. And my amps and guitars were in storage for probably 9 years, where I literally didn't touch, like that guitar right there. I didn't even see it for 9 years. It was in storage. And I had all I had was a banjo, a little tenor banjo that I played around the apartment. And I taught myself to play it. And the next thing, just because I can't help myself, I started writing songs on it. And one of those songs I wrote in that period of time that I wrote on the banjo is going to be a song that I'm going to record and put on a record. Not on the banjo. I transposed it to guitar. So, but all the melodies are there. But after all these years of playing, just not really playing and just playing my banjo, I used to go to this coffee shop in Brooklyn, and there was this kid, Pete Asarisi, had a gold tooth and a shaved head and tattoos and fucking Scottian beard, and we would just sit in this coffee shop and talk about Thin Lizzy and Rush and endlessly. How do you talk about Thin Lizzy for 6 hours? I don't know, but we did. We drank coffee, we got really shaky, and we talked about Rush and all kinds of stuff. And then this went on for a couple of months. And then one day he came to the coffee shop and he was like, "What are you doing today?" And I said, "Nothing." He goes, "Don't think." He goes, "Let's go to my studio right now and jam." And I was like, "Ah," and he goes, No, just stop talking. Don't talk. None of that. Just get up and come and play with me." And we went to his studio and we jammed for 6 hours and had a great time. And the next day it was the same thing. "What are you doing? Don't argue with me." And we started jamming every day. And, we had to have something to jam on. So I started writing material. And that was really the beginning of what's happening now. Because I played with him for a while, and I played with a bass player for a while, and I played with another guitar player for a while, and none of them panned out in any kind of lasting way. But they motivated me to write, and I have a whole repertoire of new songs now. And if I had a band, I would be gigging it. But like I said, what I want to do is release these songs one at a time, generate some interest, and then assemble a band and start playing live.
So in terms of content creation, can we look forward to Cro-Mags covers on the banjo?
Perhaps. I don't know how that would translate. Maybe. Not likely.
So I'd like to touch on your other passion, which obviously you're very in depth with in terms of your work these days in the film industry, because a lot of people probably aren't aware that you were very active in the MTV days and I guess beyond in music video, directed bands such as Anthrax, Nuclear Assault, Biohazard, Type O Negative. I believe you were involved with a Sepultura video as well. Can you tell us about some of the other bands that you directed music videos for and how you actually got started in the biz?
Well, I guess the most viewed video I did was Onyx Slam. There's a rap group, Slam. But that I got that video. I don't know if it was big in Australia, but it was the #1 video on MTV for almost 6 months here. And I got that video because I had done a Biohazard video, and the manager of Biohazard worked for the management company that managed Run DMC. And one of the guys in Run DMC managed Onyx. And then I got the job. And it was really, the only reason I got the job was because I understood slam dancing. So they basically wanted me to teach them what slam dancing was. And that's and oddly enough, that's exactly what we had to do. Like we had the first day of shooting, we shot in this warehouse and we must have had 500 extras, all black teenagers who didn't know what slam dancing was. And this group who didn't really know what slam dancing was. And I didn't want to have them set up on a stage and all this stuff. So I had all these like abandoned vans put in the room, and they were standing on one of the vans as a stage. And like I had a bullhorn, and I'm yelling, "Okay, I want you to jump off the van into the audience." And they were like, "Fuck that." And I was, and you know, every second on set matters. So like I had to jump down from where I was, and I ran up and I climbed up onto the van, and I said, "Listen, it's easy." And I was like, "Come on, everybody, get closer, closer." And then I just dove into the audience. I looked up at him like riding on the crowd, and I looked at him. I said, "Now, if I can do it, and you saying you can't do it, pussy." The next thing you know, they were diving in, and it was full on chaos. And the video went multi-platinum, and it was a #1 video for 6 months. But how I got started in music videos was I made a video for the Cro-Mags. When we put out our first album, my father had bought like an old military camera that, you know, was made for battlefield shooting, like so you could run out in the field and get knocked down and bounce around. It's called a Bolex. He bought it at a police auction, and he gave it to me, and I took it out on tour. And I took it out on tour with me, and I just started shooting everything as we were going along on the first tour, supporting Age of Quarrel with GBH first, and then we went out almost right away with Motorhead. So I was shooting all this stuff, and at some point, as we were traveling through Nashville, where my brother lived, and my brother worked at a TV station, he said, "What are you doing with all this footage?" And I was like, "I don't know. At some point, I'll make a music video." Like all artists, I always felt like I don't have enough to do it. But he really pressed me to, while I was there for a day and a half, to start editing it. And I said, "How do you edit it?" And, you know, normally when you shoot on film, you have to do a film to tape transfer so you can digitize the video. But we didn't have anything like that. So my brother said, "Let's set up a video camera and then project the film on the wall and videotape it off the wall, and then we'll have videotapes that we can edit." So we actually did that, and we edited the whole thing together just in a couple of days. And then when that leg of the tour was over, I went to the record label, and I sat down with one of the execs. I was like, "So if the band wanted to make a video, how do we go about that?" And they explained, "Oh, well, you know, the label would pick a single and determine whether the sales would equal, you know, this and that advertising, you know, jibber jabber lingo." And I said, "Well, what if a band wanted to make their own video?" And then he went through another speech, and I said, "Well," and I took the tape out of my pocket. I said, "Well, what if I made one already?" And he was actually going out the door to go to a music conference in Paris, France. And he said, just give me the videotape. And he like ran out the door. And when he came back a week later, he said that when he went to this music conference in Paris, that in their booth, they had a TV and a VCR set up. And he said on the first day, he goes, I put your video on and it immediately drew a crowd. And for 3 days of that music conference, there was a crowd in front of our booth watching your video over and over and over the entire weekend. He goes, and that made him want to put the video out. But I had explained to him the whole thing about videotaping it off the wall. So he said, well, what will it cost to do this properly? And I said, well, let me look into it. So we hired this editor and we went in and we did a real video transfer and we re-edited it. And then we gave it to MTV and it, immediately went to videos that don't suck in 120 minutes in America. But in the rest of the world, it was on regular rotation. It was the first video ever on MTV with slam dancing. So it had legs and it, exposed us to the world. And that was my first music video. And then the next thing that happened was Anthrax called me up and they said, we love that video. We want you to do a video exactly like that for us. And then I did the video Belly of the Beast for Anthrax. That was my first professional music video.
At that point, had you kind of just sort of lost interest in being a performer of music and wanted to sort of, again, as I say, get behind the lens? Were you sort of, I'm retired from playing music as a full-time artist and this is where I'm at now, and you sort of switched your passion to filmmaking at that point?
I wouldn't say it was a decision. It's just kind of one of those things where I just get distracted by something that I'm doing. And being a filmmaker is an all-consuming life. I mean, when I was busy doing music videos, it was just all I had to do. And I was enjoying it. I was making a lot of money for the first time. And I was having, it's weird, as far as an artist goes, the gratification you get from creating something is very far and in between with a musician. I mean, every maybe 2 years, if you're lucky, you go into the studio and you make a record, and then you wait 6 months for it to come out. Then it finally comes out and you have this sense of completion and like you've done something. And if it's not all that you wanted it to be, then all you do is live with the disappointment of that. But the gratification is so spread out. I mean, gigs are a different thing. You just have the fun of doing that. But the real creative satisfaction I have, maybe because I wrote the songs as an artist, was the records. But when I was directing music videos, I had that feeling of completion 4 times a month. I mean, delivering something to the record label that somebody trusted you, gave you $100,000, and in 2 weeks you have to hand them something. And they're like, we love it, and you love it. That satisfaction was something that was continuous, and I really, really became, I wouldn't say addicted to it, but it's so gratifying that you couldn't imagine. You weren't at a loss for a creative gratification. So I wasn't hungering for those days where I would have to wait years to make a record and then to be honest with you, make records with people who I didn't feel were bringing to the table the effort that I was.
When you look at filmmaking today, I mean, anyone can do that with a phone now. It's incredible, just the convenience to create. And obviously now there's also a lot of competition of that because there's so much noise out there to get people's attention. How have you adapted to, the changes of creativity in the digital realm, coming from what you've learnt for so many years to where you're at now? Has it been a pretty easy transition to, follow the changes as they've come up?
Well, the first thing you said was anybody can do it with a phone now.
Roughly.
They can't.
Not as good, of course.
I mean, no, they really can't. I mean, it's just like anything. There's always been thousands and thousands and millions of guitars, but that doesn't mean that anybody can go out there and write an album that makes any difference to people. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with the visual medium. I mean, certainly the ability for talented people to find a voice is a lot easier now than it was back then. I mean, back then you not only had to work your way up and find someone who believed in you, but enough to gamble hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in the film business on your talents was incredibly difficult. Now it is probably a lot easier for a talented person to find that path, but I don't think untalented people are making videos that are relevant because of the availability of the technology. And my approach to filmmaking, especially, one thing I will say about what you said is, I certainly would not have had the freedom that I'm having right now to go out in the middle of the night in New York City and shoot my own music video if the technology and the accessibility and the cheapness of it. Like, I bought a DSLR camera and 3 zoom lenses for somewhere around $10,000, which I use all the time. But that's what I'm using to shoot my music video, and probably 2 or 3 lights that I drag up there. And whereas I used to have to, I would sit down and write down on a piece of paper. Someone would give me a tape, and I would put on my headphones, and I would write down what was called a treatment, which is basically a little story what the music video would be. And I'd hand it off to my producer, and he'd do all the numbers, and then he'd hand it to the record label. And if they approved it, 2 weeks later, like 100 people would show up with trucks and equipment and cameras, and people were running all around, and I'd just be sitting there going. And what they were doing was all the things I wrote down on a piece of paper, which was completely unbelievable to me, because I was just a guy in a band who somebody trusted to make a music video because I did this one for the Cro-Mags. The guys in Anthrax gave me an incredible vote of faith in letting me direct their music video. And then almost immediately after I did that, they said, "Hey, you ever directed a concert video?" I mean, of course, I had never directed anything. But they said, "Have you ever directed No, that's not what they said. I remember Charlie saying to me, he goes, "Could you direct a concert video?" And I said, "Yes." Because the difference between people that do things and people who don't is whether you say yes or no.
Yep.
So I said yes. And then there I was, stuck with this idea that I was told that you're going to be flown to basically an arena where Anthrax is playing. You're going to have a crew of 100 people and 8 cameras, and you got to tell everybody what to do. So I did it. And I owe that to Anthrax and to a couple of people back then. Howie Abrams, if you know Howie Abrams from Roadrunner Records, he was the one who hired me to do the Typo Negative Black #1 video, and he was associated with the Biohazard videos that I did for Roadrunner. But Howie first hired me to do that Nuclear Assault video you mentioned earlier. It was just one of those things where, like, he was a Cro-Mags fan and he knew I'd done the Cro-Mags video. Actually, I think that Nuclear Assault video was before the Anthrax video. So he came to me and he asked me to do, he was like, "Listen, I want you to do a video for Nuclear Assault." And again, it was one of those things, like, I didn't know how to make a music video. Even to a certain extent, after I'd made my 25th music video, whenever I got hired to do another video, I'd be like, "Oh my God, how do I do that?" And literally every time you get a song as a director, you just listen to the song, and whatever it tells you to do, you do. And that's how you make a music video. It's really not like there's some kind of method that I can even tell anybody to do. Just kind of make it up based on the impression you get from the song.
And has it been almost a blessing in disguise, or a silver lining, given all of the lockdowns in New York at the moment? Because I'd imagine it may be difficult at times ordinarily in New York to shoot on the streets and stuff like that. Now, when you go out, I assume it's far more quiet, and you're less likely to be disturbed when you go out and film at midnight.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I bought this camera for the purpose of making this video 5 years ago. And I've just been too busy. I mean, I work on a TV show. I just came out, before the pandemic, I was on a TV show. There was like a Riverdale spinoff called Katie Keenan. I would work on that show 13 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then I would just sleep all weekend. And I would do that for 5 months. And before that, I was on another TV show. And before that, I was on another TV show, going back like 10 years to the point where, like, I was barely playing and certainly wasn't fulfilling my plan to shoot a music video. But this pandemic, the silver lining totally is this ability to go, not only have the freedom and time to do it and spending the time editing, because it's astronomical amount of time editing, but being able to go out into the city and have it be a ghost town. I mean, literally, where me and the guy that I'm shooting with would note that we hadn't seen anybody in an hour in New York City is unheard of. But we're also having the freedom to choose these locations that would normally be overrun with tourists. Everywhere in New York is now, you know, before the pandemic, overrun with tourists. But it really, and again, one of the other things is I wanted this video to feel like my childhood. I wanted it to feel like the New York of the 70s and the 60s when I grew up. I didn't want it to feel like, you know, Sex and the City and Gossip Girl and like all, you know, all these movies like let's go to New York and like it's so much fun there and all this stuff. The city I grew up in, it was a dark city. It was like a dark, brooding, sodium vapor, orange, nighttime, dark city. And I wanted my video to look like that. So I picked a location that still looks like that, which is so rare to find. I'm not going to say what it is, but there's this light that used to be in New York. They were called sodium vapor lights. It's what creates that really warm orange look in cities. I don't know how it is in other cities, but over the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years, they began replacing all the sodium vapor lights in New York with LED lights. So all this white light, super bright, has taken over. But this one location I found is all old sodium vapor lights. They haven't been changed yet. I guess because there's so many lights in this one location, it's probably a lot of money to replace all those lights. So I'm counting on that to at least last for another month until I finish my video, which I'm sure it will.
Well, your contribution has been just outstanding, Parris. It has been a pleasure to have you on the program. And again, we do wish you all the best with your up and coming endeavors, which we'll no doubt do our best to spread the word and let people know about it, and also continuing on your great film work. So again, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, everyone skateboarded. I grew up in the Dogtown area. Next door, I lived in Venice till I was like 6 or 7, and then we moved to Santa Monica, 3rd and Strand, and I was shit for skateboarding. I couldn't do it. I wasn't waking up early to go surfing either. So I was trying to find my little niche, and so a friend of mine down the street started playing music, and I've always dug the guitar anyway. But 13 was when I kind of took it serious. I used to go to a Catholic school. On the way to school, for giggles and whatever, but we should pick through the trash. If it looked like good trash, we'd go through it. We're kids, and we're talking 71, 72, 73, walking, 74 even, walking to school and finding trash. And one day I found this Chuck Berry album that had Johnny B. Good on it, and I remember hiding it in the bushes so on the way back I can bring it home. I couldn't wait to get my hands on that album, and got it, took it home, read everything front and back on the album like shit. And then I saved up enough money. I didn't have a record player. We didn't have one. And I saved up enough money to go to the Salvation Army, and I got myself a used record player that used to be a suit box, like a suitcase, with the speakers that would come detached. And of course, we had to stick quarters or nickels on the arm to play right. And I remember that was one of the first songs that I really tried to sit down and learn was Johnny B. Good. And that was the beginning of it. It was like the blues, and I fell in love with playing. And we had an old family guitar. It wasn't tuned right, but as long as I got the strokes right on my right hand, I thought I was doing something. You know what I mean? and I try to find the note, you know. And I later saved money to get my first electric guitar, which was a Hondo or a Honor. No, it was a Hondo. A Hondo 2, it was a cherry burst or lemon burst Les Paul wannabe that I got at Ace Music in Santa Monica. And cherry sunburst. Les Paul, brand new off the wall. I forgot what, I don't know, $80-something. I saved up the money for it and got it. And that was the beginning. I remember I couldn't tune my guitar right, so I'd have to take the bus a good hour away so they can tune my guitar, and I'd come back and they taught me how to tune, you know, with the old, you know, that, and taught me how to tune it. And later in the years, my buddy Nelson Elwolf, who was in my first band, he was telling me that just, you know, when you pick up the phone, the dial tone is a regular A, like a mid A. So that's how I started tuning my guitar, from listening to the phone and you know, just doing harmonics on it. And the rest is history, huh? Just playing away.
Well, this is the part of the program where we talk about homeschooling you when it comes to bands you probably know, you may not know of at all, when we're up to the letter D. So I'm going to handball it over to you, Stephen Mitchell. What have you chosen as your D band?
Well, it's probably a band that's in my top 5 all-time favourite bands. Definitely top 10, but possibly top 5.
Def Leppard?
You're trying to trigger me. That's the word,
Deep
isn't
Purple?
it? Well, we've got Deep Riff here in the Riff Crew, but no, it's not Deep Purple. No, it's a band called Damnation A.D. And so Damnation A.D. basically formed out of the ashes of another band called Worlds Collide. The guitarist Ken Oldham and Hillel Holloway played in Worlds Collide. When they wound up, they started Damnation A.D.
Yep.
And Mike McTernan is on vocals. His brother Brian McTernan sings in Battery. Mike also does backup vocals in Battery. And Alex Mershlinsky is on bass guitar. And over the years, they've had a revolving door of drummers. I mean, who can keep a drummer happy, Andrew? They're big.
But what do they say? The only best musician that's in your band is the drummer.
That's right. But they basically kicked off with their debut album, which is No More Dreams of Happy Endings. And I'm going to say something very controversial, Andrew. Are you ready for it?
Go for it. I'm just checking out the signed cover, but continue.
That's right. This has got the best guitar tone of any album ever.
See again?
This album has got the best guitar tone of any album ever. It's a big call, and it's not to say that necessarily it's the best ever, because that's subjective. But it is why I say it's the best, because it's unique. Because
okay,
you know, the Morris Sound Studio sound awesome, Swedish sound awesome. But how many bands sound like that?
Yeah, they had that trademark sound from those areas and that era. So who produced this record to create that tone?
Oh, well, obviously the band were heavily involved. Ken, who is guitarist, was engineered the album.
Yep.
And it was basically an unorthodox setup that they did use. I believe they used actually a monitor to record off. And even their subsequent albums don't sound like this. And it's just an amazing crunch sound when they open up with the first riff of the album after the intro track. It's just there's a primordial part of my brain that switches off, and I just go into a spasm, because
so you don't think they've ever been able to replicate that guitar tone on any other record since that? Because some bands do weird guitar techniques and stuff in the studio, not today's studios with plugins and replacements, but some of them, as you said, an unorthodox approach, which is, I guess by the sounds of it, is what they did to get that guitar tone, and sometimes bands can't replicate it the second time round. I do know that, as an example, James Hetfield has said on record that Ride the Lightning is the best guitar tone he's ever got, and Metallica have done, 8 albums since then or whatever, never been able to replicate it. He even said that. He goes, I wish I could get that guitar tone, but it's all sometimes down to the room, the gear you've got, the mood, the energy. There's a whole bunch of different facets that it comes into the ultimate guitar tone. So, wow, that is the best guitar tone. I must give that another listen then, because I don't really recall it being the best guitar tone. If it did, I would have gone, totally, dude.
Well, I guess it's like all music, it's subjective. Yeah, but the other thing that's striking about the album is just the crunching riffs. Honestly, the vocal delivery is perfect for the music, but what gets me is the riffs. It's just, it's not too fast, but it's just deep, heavy, crunching riffs, which I love. They followed it up with an EP called Misericordia. As I said, they didn't replicate the sound. You can tell probably less budget or less time was spent in producing the album. Still great music, but kind of a letdown in terms of the sound of the album.
Yep.
And then they followed it up with their second full-length album, which is called Kingdom of Lost Souls, which came out, I think, in 98. And this had a much fuller sound to it, and just the trademark Damnation A.D. riffs. And as I said, it's not an intellectual experience for me with this band. It just moves me physically.
Yeah,
because
that's how music should in a lot of ways. That's what it's there for, as a vehicle to take it to another place.
Yep.
But you said they're not really active anymore. Is it kind of just on a hiatus, or they never really split up? Because I haven't heard much about them in years, to be honest.
Well, basically after that album, they didn't really do much after that. I do have a limited edition version of that album, Kingdom of Lost Souls, one of only 30, special release. They basically not really split up, but just became inactive. And it's partly because they're in so many different bands. Like, for example, Ken has played in Youth of Today. Last year he was touring with H2O. He plays with Battery. He was in Better Than 1,000, I think, at the same time.
So this
he
band
was in
wasn't...
Shelter as well.
Okay.
Played shows with Shelter. Hellway's, of course, in the amazing Black Manta.
Yep.
Which I will not stop raving about.
Well, so you mentioned, because obviously it sounds like all the other members were in other bands. So was this a side band for those guys that were in other more prominent bands, or was this the main concentrate, and then everyone sort of just went, I'm going to go off and do my own thing? It's hard to know with all the members you said they're playing other bands.
I think it was just more they went in different directions.
Okay.
And because I guess with a lot of the hardcore bands, particularly with Ken, he's just jumping from project to project, and so it kind of had an energy of itself to a point, and then they redirected the energy elsewhere. About a decade later, they did bring out this album called In This Life or the Next, and it featured some new material as well, some of re-recorded material. So it gave it a bit of a taste, but as the band wasn't actively touring, it wasn't, as I said, the energy and the push and the drive wasn't as the same as in the 90s, but still some great music. And again, the guitar tone is not the manna from heavens like their first album, but it's still got a great sound. I love the sound of this album. And more recently, they covered The Cure's Pornography album.
Okay, in its entirety?
In its entirety. So,
oh, wow. I remember that cover, actually, but I don't think I ever heard it. So what was their reason behind that? Have you looked into it?
Well, Mike and Ken, the vocals and guitarist, are huge Cure fans. And there's actually a funny story Ken tells about him winning a lookalike contest, a Cure lookalike contest.
Well, because he looked like Robert Smith.
Well, yes.
Or Edward Scissorhands.
But the funny thing is, because you remember Robert, he was very pale, I think the spiky hair. And Ken, if you know, he's a black guy, and I think he had a bald head at that point, and he won a lookalike contest. But it's a funny story.
How does that work? How does that work? You got a white goth guy and that's just, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, is there any pictures on the net?
I think there is one. There is a video if people want to check it out. Ken tells the story in more length, but basically he was in a nightclub and there was a contest, a Robert Smith lookalike. So there were all these Robert Smith wannabes, and
he just gets up there.
He wanted to get up, and I think he said he claimed, "Oh, this is racist," and he said, "No, the person who was organising it."
Is this a black thing?
The people organising said, "No, it's not racist because it's a clapometer. So whoever gets the loudest applause wins." And so obviously everybody was stoked to see Ken up on stage. So
Even though
he won.
In truth, he probably looked nothing like it, but it was one of those, let's just support that guy because, it was sort of left of centre. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So how does the album sound, though, doing Cure covers in Damnation A.D. style?
I love the sound, but for me, I like the Damnation music more.
Yeah. So
it's kind of like if you're looking for more Damnation, but obviously it's not there, then it might feel the hunger for more riffs. So as I said, this band, it's just got an amazing sound, I think, and amazing riffs, and it's vocally intense as well. The lyrics can be quite intense as well. Yep. So, highly emotional. So it's more, as I said, it's not, it's more of an emotional experience rather than an intellectual experience with this band. So definitely check them out if you like the heavier, slower side of things. I wouldn't say groove metal or sludge, but they do get kind of sludgy in parts.
Sounds like they've just always had their own vibe. Now, you've got quite the collection. Is there stuff online? People can check them out on Spotify or iTunes or wherever?
Who's not online?
Well, I know, everyone is online. No escape. Get off the grid. Can't be helped. So their stuff is on Spotify, most of their gear. I haven't looked it up. So
I don't use Spotify, mate. I've got the discs. I'm old school.
You've got the collection. Now, quickly fill us in on the array of signatures.
Oh, yeah. So I was out 2018 a couple of times. Caught the guys in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Hanging out with Billy Ray Valentine as well. And later in the year, they had a tour with Darkest Hour. So caught some shows with the guys, which was great.
So they were just doing random tours, no new music?
No new music. The first show was a benefit show for a friend that passed away and left medical bills. I think an unexpected illness. And the second was just a very short tour with Darkest Hour, 4 shows.
And how did it translate live compared to the experiences you had listening to it on record?
It was good.
Yep.
It was good. I enjoyed it. And we should listen to some of it too.
That we should. Let's check it out. Damnation A.D., letter D.
No more trees. No more. easier for me to run away. At this moment, everything seems so late. I want to get out of the shadows and into the day. We can't wait for a day that may never come. Is this life over, or has it just begun? to be. I look into your eyes, for they speak mine.
Let's welcome our guests to the program. I've been sort of keeping an eye and an ear on this band the last couple of years, but their new record has completely blown me away. Huge step up. They're called Black Crown Initiate, and their third album, Violent Portrait of Doomed Escape, has just been released, and we do have James and Andy on the screen for us right now to say g'day and welcome to the program.
Hey, good day.
Good day.
Good day. Well, again, massive effort celebrating such a great new offering. Are you guys happy with the brand new record, I would presume?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's like cliche to say that your new stuff is the best stuff you've done, but I think that's true.
Yeah, 100%.
Like looking back at the band's sort of earlier material, and you know, some bands you sort of see the progression is massive, but you guys have always come out of the gate very solid anyway. It's just that you've really honed your sound and your craft, and the production's fantastic as well. The songwriting's a lot more solidified, but it isn't to take away what you'd already put out as being average, because it was still a great output already for the band's short career. But where did you feel the need to take the songwriting to a different level on this new album?
We've always written longer songs, and I think as you really examine the songwriting and the composition with longer songs, it really becomes about trimming the fat off.
Yep.
And I think we were very mindful of that this time. Like, maybe we don't need to repeat this part again. I look at stuff that we've written in the past, and it feels that way. Like, oh, you didn't need to repeat that. So I think the goal, songwriting wise or compositionally, was to be concise within a framework that is longer songs.
You look at the way social media has changed things for everybody. It's brought fans and bands down to almost the same level. It doesn't matter. You've been playing guitar for 30 years, someone's been playing for 2, and everyone thinks we're kind of on the same level playing field. Right. It's almost to the point where, sadly, experience doesn't really matter. It's just how you can connect with that person and reach that person as well. And again, like you mentioned about building rapport with fans is probably more important than ever, purely because fans, we are so spoiled for choice, and
yeah, option paralysis, right?
Big time. So yeah. I think you guys are on the right approach for that. How do you guys approach things on the live front? Because you've done a lot of touring. I look back on your past history, especially the last 2 records, and you've done a lot of shows. And of course, we're in a shitty circumstance now that touring is kind of on pause at the moment. But how do you approach things when it comes to getting out there and touring?
I think when we started, we kind of were more of the mindset that you have to take every tour that comes your way, and we did that.
We did.
And it burns you out for sure.
It might have been important for us to do.
Yeah, it was a good thing for us to do, but it definitely, as you grow, you might look at things a little differently. I think if things change from the current situation, we'll you know, we still want to tour a whole bunch, but I think it's important to, you know, pick packages and things like that are going to be impactful and you know, developmental for your band. I think for a band like ours, you know, even though they were great guys and they're a great band and they're like heroes of ours, touring with a band like Deicide maybe didn't do us any favors, because I come out there and start singing and everybody wants to throw rocks at me.
Clean singing.
Yeah.
Well, Glenn Benton loved him.
Glenn Benton was a real cool guy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had like a selfie stick and he would take selfies with me and stuff, and he called me Perry Como
You
because
sound like Perry Como.
I'd see him every day and be like, "Yo, Perry Como." And I was like, "This is sick. That's Glenn Benton." But you know what I mean? Like, I think Deicide's fan base maybe wasn't one that across the board appreciated what we were doing, and that's okay because I love Deicide, so whatever. But
Well, this is
You got a leg story about that.
This is the.
yeah, I have a titanium rod in my leg because of a Deicide mosh pit.
Tell us about that.
Oh, I got real drunk and they started playing shit off of Serpents of the Light, and I was just like, I'm going in. I'm furious, and I feel like I'm in high school again, only I wasn't. And then a huge human fell into my leg and snapped it in half.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was not the best day of my life.
How long were you bedridden again?
I was bedridden for like 5 or 6 months.
Well, you got you got scars of the crucifix from that one. You like that pun?
Fucking A, dude.
Now, as you mentioned before about touring and playing with, you know, different bands, this is the sort of how do we put it? It's like a double-edged sword. It's bands play to the same sort of fans who like the same music, and that's great. Everyone's happy, but no one's sort of it's like preaching to the converted. But at the same time, when you're a band that goes out and plays with another band that's of a different sound, it could either be hit or miss. It's kind of a gamble in a lot of ways. Do you find that is worth the risk in order to grow and expand your audience? Because, again, you'd be playing with different people that might not be aware of your sound. You just feel like you need to choose the right kind of bands, excluding Deicide, of course.
I mean, I would probably tour with Deicide again if we got offered it. I'm just, you know, it's like
chess.
Yeah.
You have to look at the next move, and I think like at the time it made sense for us to do, and I think because we did it, we sort of won a diverse fan base, even if some of the tours were real slogs. I don't think I could handle much of that type of slogging now, but back then I think it served us in a way. You know, we were out there all the time and in front of a diverse group of people, and I think that it was a good foundation to lay. But as to whether we should keep doing that or not, I don't know.
Well, a band like ours, because of the way we sound, like I don't think, like if you're a band, for example, who, you know, maybe your favorite band is Whitechapel or something, which is a sick band, but like that's your main influence. So you start a band and you sound just like Whitechapel. You know, you can come out of the gate and go, well, this is for fans of Whitechapel. And most of the people that will like that band, for example, will like your music. But we don't really have that. So it's like you can't say like, well, they sound exactly. I mean, you can hear our influences for sure, but you wouldn't say we sound exactly like this or exactly like that. So you have to go out and build your fan base, literally one person by one person.
Yeah,
and it takes longer, I think.
Have you found any of the bands or tours you've been on where, you know, perhaps it has clicked a bit better than the experience with Deicide?
Touring with the Aussies in Ne Obliviscaris, that was a very good fit for us.
Yeah.
Touring with Rivers of Nile is a great fit for there. I mean, they're from the same hometown as us. We all grew up playing music together. But touring with bands like that, that's a very good fit for us. And you find that the fans that come out, like, they're there for everybody.
we did a tour with Flesh God Apocalypse and Septic Flesh.
Yeah.
Which I think in an odd way was sort of, that was a good run for us.
Yeah.
Because
that was our second tour that we ever did.
Yeah. Yep. That was a good, you had this dynamic, this kind of, I don't know, beautiful and harsh dynamic in the band. And even if it's only conceptual, I think that works in a touring package.
And what did you learn playing with some of the Aussie bands like Nabl, Viscaris and King Parrot? Because as you probably are aware, and they probably told you, an Australian tour can go for 4 shows and that's it, you've done the country. Whereas when Australian bands get that chance to play back-to-back 30 shows, they tend to revel in it more because they're not used to it. So, did you...
Well,
what did you like playing with Australian bands?
First of all, King Parrot are the most delightful band in the world to tour with. They're so much goddamn fun. It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. And the sweetest dudes, like, just really kind.
When we toured with Neo, like Dan Preslin, the drummer, who's an amazing dude, he wanted, because they were in a bandwagon and we were in a van, so he wanted to know what touring in a van was like. So we actually put him in our van for a few shows, and he just traveled with us because he was like, I just want to know. And that was really fun. I remember we had like a day off in Denver with him. We got real drunk.
He raised $20,000 for us because
we got robbed at the end of that tour.
We got robbed.
Oh, wow.
Yep. He was like, I'm going to set up a GoFundMe for you.
I fucking love, those two bands, I love those bands, man. Yeah. I love those guys. I love their music. And so we'd love to come to your country.
Yep. Absolutely.
At the moment, we're not letting anybody in, unfortunately. And we can't get out as well. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, our homes are now our prisons.
Yeah. Exactly. And Australia really does now coin the real term that we are a prisoner island, as we first were back in the discovery times. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
now.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that. 'Cause that the things I've been hearing about Melbourne in particular are not good.
Let's talk about moving forward with you guys, because again, touring's on pause for everybody to a degree in most countries, and this is such an amazing record that's been put out. And there's been a few other bands we've spoken to on the show that we sort of wonder, is this, will these records get overlooked during this time because everyone's focus is in different areas and their emotions are in different areas, that it might be a year before touring opportunities can start again, and will the records be forgotten, and then will you start a new album? So what's your whole view on moving forward at the moment for the band, and will you hit the road as soon as this whole thing somehow eases?
Yes, absolutely. Basically, yeah. I mean, all those things that you're describing are things that we have to contemplate, obviously, and touring is something that we look to do as soon as we're allowed to. Even though we do live in risky, weird times, we're not a band that is going to be afraid to do that. I think what we are trying to do in the meantime is try to engage as many people with the mediums that we have, which is mostly social media. And we are working actively to become sort of more technologically aware and adept, so that we can communicate with people in the ways that we are able to. I think that's kind of the operative right now. But yeah, as soon as we can tour, if that ever happens again, we will.
How have you guys utilized the downtime while you can't go on tour?
We've actually, we have some. I mean, we're basically we're like days away from starting to write another album, because that's really, I mean, you might as well. I have ideas developing. Our other guitar player Ethan has ideas developing, and we're gonna start, because we live in different parts of the country, so we're gonna start hopping on Zoom or Skype or whatever, and have writing sessions and start to put something else together, so that when if the worst case scenario does happen, that this album doesn't get toured on, we'll make another one. And this album for us was it was a way of starting over, but it was also a way of sort of closing a chapter. certainly in my life. So I'm looking forward to writing another album. But I would definitely like to be able to play some shows on this one. You know, we had discussed that this is probably the type of album that you would want to play the whole way through.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to do that.
Yeah, hopefully, man. Yeah.
Well,
that's a problem if too much time passes and we're writing music because you got to strike when the iron is hot. And, you know, if that's the case, not that none of it will never be played live, but yeah.
How have you guys adjusted? Because you've had a number of lineup changes in the band's career to date, in terms of the writing process and the composition process. Because your music is obviously a lot more detailed than, say, power chords or a lot of other styles of metal.
Sure.
So when you bring in new band members, do you find that it's a new evolution for the band?
Our lineup changes have been, fortunately, pretty organic. When I say that, I mean like Ethan, our new guitar player, was actually the first guy that we asked to join the band on guitar. He was an old guitar student of mine. I've known him. Man, I've known that guy since he was, well, he turned 27 yesterday, and I've known him since he was maybe 14. I used to teach him guitar. He was the only student I ever had that I straight up was like, I don't have anything more to teach you, man. You're there. You got it. You know, just go take lessons with some old jazz guy or something, because I can't do any more for you. But so he was the first guy that we asked to join the band before our original guitar player, Rick, who we had great writing chemistry with because I grew up playing music with Rick as well. So having Ethan in the band, we've grown up, you know, either teaching each other music or playing music together. Actually, Holy Silence, the last real song on the album, was a song that Ethan, Nick, and I wrote in like 2008. So we've been, it's a non-issue, really.
Now, you mentioned before about the latest record, how it was sort of closing a chapter for you. What did you mean by that?
Well, for myself, I went through in the downtime of the band, which was basically like 2016 to 2019. I went through what I would consider and what I hope remains to be the worst period of my life. And I moved across the country to Arizona. I didn't meet, but I reconnected with a woman that I love very much, and I have a life that is very, very good now. And that album, for me, was a closing of the door on that, what I hope remains to be the worst period of my life. So, moving forward, there's still a lot of stuff to be upset about, for sure. But personally, I'm doing quite well. And that's what I mean by that.
And do you
It
find
was similar for me too?
Yeah,
actually, yeah. I had my own had my own shit I went through. Yeah. Not to go into gory detail, but it was a similar experience for me.
I mean, it shows just.
I got cancer.
Ouch. It just shows how
ouch. You got cancer. Ouch.
In the mild sense.
There was actually a lot of didn't hurt that bad. But
yeah. It just shows how much music can be a gift for a lot of people that actually play it, because not everyone plays in a band. As much as I said earlier on, there's so many bands out there, but it's still such a creative thing that not everybody does, and it's sometimes a little bit sad when you realize, some people can benefit from, I guess, not even just playing music, but creating their own gift to get themselves through certain times, because sometimes relying on a shoulder or a doctor doesn't always cut it, When did you guys feel that you discovered the gift of actually playing music and also using that as a way of getting through, daily life and challenges?
For me, it was our EP, because I had been in like a few local bands. I think when we played our first show with Black Crown, which was opening for Goat Whore and 1349, on our way out to do the Behemoth tour. I think that was my 8th live show ever. So for me, it was really with the EP. The EP for me was like, I was 25 or 26, and I'm 34 now, and I kind of realized that if I didn't do exactly what I basically decided to go and record an EP in a professional studio and pay for it out of my own pocket and play the music that I wanted to play and put it down on record and then go get a job in a factory and or something. So that EP was really, it's kind of similar to this album in that I was just putting everything I had into something, and I really didn't know what would happen, but that was where I learned, I guess, that you can sort of emotionally explode in a healthy way with music.
Emotionally explode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
Oh, as Metallica says, set your anger free, Saint Anger.
Yeah, you know what, dude? Metallica, I actually got drunk. My birthday was 2 nights ago.
Happy birthday.
3 nights ago, I don't remember. Yeah, thank you. I got really drunk, and my buddy Mikey, who's a really good drummer, he drums for Vector now, but he was actually telling me that he thinks Megadeth pound for pound is better than Metallica, and I'm not. I don't believe that. Saint Anger really sucks. That's really, really bad stuff. But the first 4 Metallica albums and the Black Album, I wouldn't be here without them. And James Hetfield is my hero.
Well, we talked about with the Metallica reference about how they were using music as a way of getting out whatever the hell was going on. Obviously, the result wasn't great musically, but as we talked about, getting that ability that not everyone has to express themselves, and especially for them, it takes guts to pull that out on camera. I mean, I know the band still cringe
and James
at
Hetfield is
that.
kind of a prime example of a dude who, like, I'm pretty sure that guy on a social level is pretty inept. Maybe not anymore, but at least when the band started, like, that guy had a lot of issues.
Of course.
And then he just came out and wrote fucking those albums, and they're the best. To this day, they're the best.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I could go on about Metallica, and if you're my friend Mikey and I'm drunk on my birthday, I'll probably yell at you about it.
Just on those musical influences, because there are bands that you're compared with, such as Opeth, and I hear some, maybe Devin Townsend influences and so forth. Are there particular bands or styles of music that you guys really dig that influence you but may not be that obvious?
Well, I mean, we like the usual suspects, the things that you do here, Opeth, Devin Townsend, Meshuggah, Tool, whatever, Metallica, like that's still the shit that I listen to. If I'm gonna, Decapitated is a big one for me. That's still the shit that I listen to if I'm gonna listen to heavy music. But I do listen to a lot of different stuff. I like a lot of indie rock. I like Sigur Rós, or however you say it. I think it is Sigur Rós. That band is so important to me. I don't think that there's much that we do in our music that really reflects that, but that band, man, I love that band.
I remember one time you said that, I think it was the first song in the EP that you said that there was an Iron and Wine.
Yeah, well, I love Iron and Wine, and that they're like, Stench of the Iron Age. There's a little section with like vocal oohs and ahs and shit, and like I just stole it from Iron and Wine. There's all kinds of shit. But I mean, the stuff that you hear and you say, well, that sounds like Devin Townsend or Opeth. That's because that's the music that I idolized and still do.
For me, like I've come to realize that I don't take as much influence from music that I used to. I still actively listen to music. I still actively check out new bands. there are bands that I listen to a lot that you could say influenced our music, like The Ocean and like Cult of Luna.
Oh yeah.
Bands like that we really kind of gravitate towards. But for myself and like my sound or whatever, and whatever my contribution is, my inspiration is just my life, I think, which that's a huge one. That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Well, it's very evident because the vocals are great on the record. I mean, to me, it was a huge standout, even though previously they were always very strong. But that is, you know, for me, if anything, because I knew the band's previous work, even today, especially, you know, running the radio station as well, we get inundated with so much music. But vocally, it was just very refreshing. Even though there are a lot of clean singers out there, it just had its own thing. And I was like, wow, this, you know, the vocals are incredible on the new record. It's a massive step up.
What's that?
It's a massive step up.
Thanks, man. James absolutely crushed this album, and I think it's, you know, because I've worked with him for so long. And I said this to him last night. I think this is the first album where, for me, hearing it, I think that's what that guy sounds like. And I mean that as a compliment. And like, you know,
I've always been finding my footing.
Yeah, you notice, like, if you listen to all our albums, you can hear him experimenting with different stuff, and we've always encouraged that. I think that we always will. But I think this is the first album where he, you know, when he walked into the recording studio and when he recorded the first lines to Invitation, that was it was like, oh, okay, that you have arrived where you have arrived on your path.
It's a culmination of sorts. Yeah.
And you know, vocals are very interesting, and it's been an honor for me to like grow as a vocalist next to him, because I have to, you know, I've always,
that's a cheers
to you.
That's a cheers.
I've always,
Likewise.
I feel like I have so much work to do because he's singing.
Given 2020 has been quite a challenging year for obviously lots of people around the world, and you've touched on some of the personal challenges you guys have had over the recent few years. What are the you know, whether key or one life lesson you've learnt to help you be more resilient?
There's nothing to fear. You are, we all are incredibly more than we're conditioned to believe. And literally, human beings are reflections of infinite consciousness, experiencing these little moments in time that we call Andy or James. And you don't come from anywhere and you're not going anywhere. And when someone tells you that you need to be afraid, that's a lie. And it's an attempt to control you. That's where I'm at.
Perfectly stated.
Never act out of fear.
What's that?
I said perfectly stated.
Thank you, man.
Well, it's been great to have your time, and again, good luck with the record. We do hope that the band can get out and actually showcase these tracks to people live, and fingers crossed, and I guess in the next however long, we can have the band, you know, come to Australia, because we'd love to have you. I mean, we've had a tsunami of tours the last decade in Australia. It's been overwhelming. So let's hope that, yeah, we can get through all this sort of shit, and the band can make their way to Oz.
If we come to Melbourne, you let us know you're coming to the show, and we'll have a tsunami of beers.
Damn straight.
And just one final question.
Yeah.
One final question. Did the King Parrot guys school you up in any Aussie slang by any chance? Did you catch any phrases? What are some of the key phrases they taught you?
Sick cunt.
Yeah.
That's
When
what,
I like, you guys say, like, you guys use strict as an adjective.
Yeah, fully strict. Yeah.
Yeah. And I when the first time I heard that, I was like, what? What the fuck do you mean strict? And yeah, I enjoyed that. I make fun of the way you guys talk, because the guys in King Parrot really enjoyed it. I'll be like, oh, we're gonna have 13, 14, 15, maybe 19. You know, it's like the way you guys say numbers and shit. It's pretty wild. 13,
14, 15.
Maybe 19.
They're as bogan as it gets. Squiz, slats, all of them. They're great.
Bogans, dude. That's what they are. Yes.
Total.
Squizzy, Slats, Youngie. Yeah, dude. I love those dudes, man.
Yeah, me too, man.
Well, we are coming up to the end of the program and what we normally have been doing. If you've noticed that we tend to raid my music collection because over the years of doing radio, which I still do, we used to get a lot of these publicity-free promotional things, a bit of a nudge from record labels to encourage us DJs to play some of these bands. But this one's a bit different because we look at the spate of bands today that have lost revenue on physical sales because it's now shifted to digital. So bands are now putting out their own beer brands, their own wine. But this is one band that I believe was certainly ahead of the curve back in 1999. I bought this in the States, Motley Crue. It's called Motley Brew, and it was around the release of their Generation Swine record. I think that came out in 98, which was the album they, I think, followed up after the 94 album that everyone hated, which I still think is one of the best Motley Crue records released, featuring John Corabi on vocals, one of the best productions a band's ever had. But everyone sort of just, oh, it hasn't got Vince in the band, I don't dig it. So anyway, the band came out with a whole brand new campaign, Vince is back, blah, 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 and unleashed this drink called Motley Brew, and just to promote the album Generation Swine. So I picked it up, I don't know, it's some 7-Eleven as a collector, and here it is still since 1999 in Los Angeles. So again, Motley was certainly ahead of the curve because I don't remember any other bands that were putting out their own. This is basically a soft drink. I don't think this is an alcoholic drink at all.
So you never tried another bottle while you were in Los Angeles?
No. Let's have a look here. Features American ginseng, African capsicum, sage, Brazilian guarana, clove, dillweed. And
so maybe it's a diet drink. Maybe that's what Vince has been on.
Carbonated water.
Do you think Vince has been using this as part of his health kick?
Oh, I don't know. Possibly. I don't know if it's working. But there you go. Something out of the collection there. Motley Brew for this week's, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Collection trinket that's sitting on the shelf.
Cool.
And so there you go.
That's a great way to end our first season, First Blood.
Yes, it is. Still the greatest movie ever made. Check it out if you haven't. 82.
So we'd like to thank all of our guests and bands that have been featured on the Riff Crew here, and also I'd like to thank my co-host Andrew.
Thank you, Stephen.
Great work, and there's no better way to thank people than in vinyl. So I've got some very special releases for you that you might play on andrewhogue.com radio. I'm not too sure. So the first one,
what have we got?
It's an Australian act, Australian performer who had quite a level of notoriety a number of years ago. Our international viewers may not know him. His name is Kamal.
Oh, Kamal, peace on earth.
Yeah, so I thought that was a really good, uplifting message for these times.
As his catchphrase was always, what is it? I wish, what did he used to say? Why can't people be kind to each other? Or something like that. Yeah, all hail Kamal.
So I think that's very appropriate for the time. So there you go, Andrew. You can add that to your collection.
Straight to the collection. You know that Kamal played the Big Day Out apparently one year?
Oh, mate, I would have loved to have seen
And he
that.
was in one of the tents, and apparently the place was just packed, and everyone loved Kamal.
He's cool, man.
So horns up to Kamal. What else have you got out of the collection?
The next we've got is the flutes of Pan. So nothing speaks to the soul more than a German pan flute player. I know you're like
George
heavy stuff.
Zamfire. The flutes of Pan. What Spinal Tap? The children dance to the pipes of Pan. Well, you're just really filling up my vinyl collection with some
classics,
some serious classics, and the price tag on the back. $1.
That was
Doesn't matter. I'm going to search Discogs to see what it's going to fetch.
Yeah, I tell you what, the op shops don't know the bargains that they're giving away, mate. Once you get a Discogs, it's probably 1,000. So
you have to double check. Are we going 3 for 3 here?
Yeah, last
overwhelming me with gifts.
Last but not least, I know because you like your up tempo, high energy type of music. Then I thought this would be appropriate, and it is 25 polka greats.
25 polka greats. That's unreal. Well, there is a few grindcore polka bands out there. So, track 3. What? Track 3, Too Fat Polka. Thank you, Stephen. I completely, thoroughly am overwhelmed by these vinyl gems. Track 7, Hoop-de-Doo. Track 8, Cherry Polka. She's my cherry polka. Lincolnsteiner polka. Performed by 6 Fat Dutchmen. And track 9, Captain Stubby and the Buccaneers. It's a pretty good compilation here of 25 of the greatest polka tunes ever.
Coming soon on andrewhogue.com radio.
Possibly not, but it will be in the collection, mate. Thank you very much. It's been a great season, of course. Don't forget to click that like button and subscribe, like everyone else says when it comes to YouTube. And also just go to the website called riffcrew.com. And it's been a blast.